Welcome to the WPL Book Drop Podcast. I'm your host, Seth, a library assistant at Waterloo Public Library, the thrift store enthusiast, and self-appointed new metal poet laureate. I am excited to welcome a great guest to the podcast today. Joining us is Josee, library assistant here at the Waterloo Public Library. Josee has 2 motorcycles, is a 3-star mariner, and knows how to fly small planes. Welcome, Josee.
Thank you. Very excited to be here.
We're glad to have you. Did you want to talk at all about the very fun, cool stuff you know how to do?
Absolutely. So I thank my parents for all those 3 things. My dad used to ride motorcycles when he was younger. He still rides them. He races motorcycles now. He's also a pilot, so that's kind of how I got into flying planes. I took a course in high school, and 3-star mariners when you cruise a lot.
Nice.
My family, we've done that, just gain new experiences, and then, more cruises, you gain more stars.
Nice. That's really exciting. Yeah, it sounds like you get to do a lot of really cool opportunities. Probably get to see a lot of different things through that,
yeah.
So that's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. So Josee, since this is your first time joining the podcast, and you're relatively new here at the library, been here, 3 months now?
3 months, almost 4.
Nice. So you're officially fully in it, but since you haven't been on the podcast, though, do you want to talk just a little bit about what you do here at WPL?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a library assistant. That means I help in every department. I'm cross-trained, so I'm in circulation, reference, and youth. I just kind of help out where they need me, and I just do what the departments do. It's great. I love it.
Awesome. Yeah. I'm sure you get to meet a lot of people and stuff like that,
yeah.
And going off of that, you are fresh to the library field in general, not just Waterloo Public Library. You just started studying for your MLIS degree. Can you talk a little bit about just in general what drew you to library work and what you think the kind of value of public libraries is, which will kind of go into our subject for today?
Yes. So I've always just been kind of drawn to the ethos of libraries. Like, of course, I love the work and distributing the knowledge and just providing resources for individuals. But it's really the ethos that had drawn me in initially, because libraries are just not places where you check out books or you get books from other places. They're just a safe place for people. If you need shelter for the day, if you want to sleep, that's what the library is for. If you need a drink of water, or if just to enjoy the day. Libraries are places where you don't have to buy a service or a product. You can just come in and socialize with the community. That's what really drew me in.
I love that. Yeah, it really is kind of one of the last places left, it seems, where, like you said, you don't need to spend money just to be here. It's kind of a home away from home for, I think, a lot of people.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes. Thank you. So the reason we're here today is to talk specifically about Banned Books Week, which we're recording this the week before Banned Book Week. This should be out sometime in the middle or so of Banned Book Week. So going off of that, that's a subject that obviously kind of touches very close to home for anybody who works at a library, or really anyone who enjoys library services. And I think just generally that hits home for a lot of people, but library-involved people especially. Could you talk just a little bit about why book banning and various book bans is such an impactful issue to you, or something you really care about, both as a library worker from that perspective, but also just from the perspective as someone who is, a member of the public?
Right. So I think book banning is a very interesting concept. I understand that the reason why people ban books in the first place is to protect a certain population. But at the same time, I think that when you ban books, you're hiding a truth. You're hiding something of a truth factor from people, because why are they banning them in the first place? You're telling people, hey, you shouldn't read this because you need to be protected. But and a lot of the book bannings are because there's violence or there's just explicit words. And if you go to the ALA website, you can look up any book that's been banned and all of the reasons why it has been banned. And I have been looking through that website through my coursework and just for personal interest reasons. And a lot of them are just because it's violence or bullying and harassment in schools. And kids are already exposed to that already, like through video games or just through TV shows, it's happening everywhere. And it just really makes me think that it's almost trying to limit intellectual freedom. And that's something that we talk a lot about within the course. If you're getting a master's in library science and information, libraries are providing intellectual freedom protection to individuals. And as a member of the staff of the Waterloo Public Library and as a community member, I want to be able to access those books. And if you ban them, then you are inhibiting intellectual freedom.
Yeah, definitely. I really like what you say about like people are particularly like kids, but like people in general who are subjected to these book bans. They are facing the issues, they're facing the things, they're exposed to the things in those books anyway, and this kind of gives them a safe place to process those kind of things, particularly like violence or like you said, violence is kind of in every facet of media and unfortunately part of a lot of people's day-to-day lives. It's something we can't avoid, but books give us a place to kind of a way to process the things that we're dealing with, even if they're not super pleasant to think about. Yeah, definitely. Cool, thank you. So getting down to specific examples of banned books, can you talk just a little bit about one that you really enjoy or one that's really important to you?
There are so many banned books that I absolutely love, and because I was an English major in undergrad, we, for some reason, focused a lot on banned books. Like there was Story of an Hour, there was Trifles, Of Mice and Men, To Kill a Mockingbird, all these other banned books. But I think my favorite banned book that I've ever read is 19 Minutes by Josee V.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a very heartbreaking story. It not only speaks about a school shooting that takes place, but it talks about, sexual and relationship abuse. It talks about bullying and harassment within schools, issues with within the home for young people, peer pressure, suicide, and communication issues. It has all of those issues wrapped into one book. And, these are issues that happen to almost everyone. In some way or another, people experience these serious issues. And it just kind of all encompasses in this book. And personally for me, I can't remember when it was, but there was a shooting at Mall of America. And it's something that happens this day and age now. And personally, it's it's scary, and all these people experience something like this within this book, and it's almost like I can relate to this, like my fear and anxiety is validated because I'm still going to school.
Yeah, of course.
And there are fears, you're like school and big campus, you're like, oh my gosh, it could happen.
Yeah.
So it's comforting in that way. Yeah.
To kind of, see, have a way to process it and those emotions. Yeah.
Gives comfort to people who have experienced these issues, and for people who haven't experienced these issues, it educates and brings awareness. It starts the conversation. Tough conversations.
Yeah. I think a lot of books in general can build kind of empathy for people of different viewpoints and people in different situations. So, definitely if you're someone who maybe doesn't specifically have that fear of like any specific thing, like whether it be unfortunately like a shooting in a public area or something like that, I think unfortunately that's a fear that I think a lot of people identify with. But even if you don't, it kind of gives you empathy for people who've either lived it or have known people who've lived it, and kind of definitely help change people. Well, not necessarily even change, but kind of help inform people's viewpoints on it. No, I like that a lot. Can you repeat the name of that book one more time, just because I'll put it in the episode description?
It was 19 Minutes.
19 Minutes by Josee V.
Yes.
Nice. And that's a very, very popular author here at WPL. So maybe you read it already, but if you haven't, that will be in the episode description if you want to check it out from us. So moving kind of on the opposite side of the actual banning itself, moving to how can we kind of not necessarily, hopefully kind of stop book bans, but moving towards, a solution. How can listeners of the podcast or just people in their community support their library, and how, alternatively, how can the library kind of support them?
So people can support their library by just requesting materials to be added into the collection. Even if these materials aren't chosen to be added into the collection, it shows on the reports that the library runs, and it also shows that people are interested in libraries. They want their libraries to be full and well-rounded, and if it's not added, it shows on the report, shows that people care about their libraries. You know, we want to keep and maintain the collection at the end of the day. Another great way that people can support their libraries is donate materials if you don't use them, you know. When you donate a material or a book, it can either be added to the collection if we don't already have it, or it could be sent to the Friends of the Library. And when you send things to Friends of the Library, they sell those books and the money goes back into the community one way or another. It goes to support the library itself, or it supports the organization that works with the library. And that's absolutely wonderful. Ways that the library supports its community and people is we have programs. You know, we want to bring people into the library. We want to show people that this is a safe place. We want to protect them. So we have fun and just educational programs that you can attend. We, at the end of the day, just provide materials for intellectual growth. That's one of the biggest ways that the library protects and supports their own community. And again, like what I've said before, the ethos of the library, just come in. We are a public building. We want to protect you. We want to serve you. So if you need a cool place on a hot day, come on in. Truly, that's what we're here for. And if we don't have whatever you're looking for, we will direct you to where you need to go at the end of the day.
Thank you. That's covers so much of what we're able to do for people, and kind of how people are in turn, you know, able to support in the ways you can, and you know, supporting. Like Josee, sometimes it's just requesting books or just coming to the library. You know, there's so many of the ways that people can support their libraries if they are concerned about like some of the things that have you know, been happening in terms of book bans and things like that, are really just kind of being present and kind of letting us support you in the way that we can. You know, us being able to do those things really helps. Of course, we do it because we want these resources in the community, but it helps us continue to offer those resources for sure. And it might not be the connection between, you know, book bans and just, you know, the library existing as a safe place for people to come in, whether they're looking for books or not, or whether they're, you know, coming in for a program or coming in to, you know, cool down on a hot day or warm up on a cool down on a hot day, warm up on a cool day. I think I got that right. Those kind of book bans and stuff do affect even just those aspects of library work, because it affects everything we do. So thank you, Josee. So I think that is kind of all we have specifically on book bans. So we're gonna wrap up, but before we do that, we always end the episode just by spotlighting 2 books that you've read recently. For today, if you wanted to keep on theme with banned books, you're welcome to, but you don't necessarily have to. So, Josee, do you have 2 book recommendations?
Of course I do. And I am staying on the theme of banned books. So the first book that I recommend is Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck. This book was published in 1937, and during this time period, obviously it's during the Great Depression, and during this time period, people with disabilities, like intellectual and physical disabilities, they're treated differently. They're seen as abominations. And of course there are other minorities discussed in this book, but it really creates a space and a discussion for all these people with disabilities. And the point of the book is that there are 2 men who travel across the United States during a time where, you know, people were really fending for themselves. So they take accountability and responsibility for one another. And of course, bad situations arise and they're trying to figure it out. It really just teaches compassion and understanding for what people are going through at this time. So that's one phenomenal book that I absolutely recommend.
Awesome.
Another book that I recommend is Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison. So it's basically a story that has an unnamed man living within the beginning and the early 20th century. And so he's an African American man. His reality is kind of created by society and the people around him. So he just feels invisible because he's African American. He's like, who am I? What am I supposed to do? And it's beautifully written. You get a whole sense of compassion and your own perception of who you are versus who society makes you to be. Yeah. And it really just helps you discover like who you are too through this man who is unnamed. It's phenomenal. I absolutely recommend that one.
Thanks. Awesome. Thank you, Josee. 2 great banned books that you can check out from the library to support the cause. So Josee, thank you again so much for joining us today on the WPL Book Drop podcast. It's been a pleasure. Anything you'd like to leave us with?
Honestly, thank you so much for having me. This is great. I'm very happy that I was able to discuss banned books with you.
Yeah.
You know, just get the awareness out. Just advocate for, you know, stopping banning books, honestly.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. So yeah, if you liked today's episode, please be sure to leave us a rating and to subscribe. I still haven't figured out my sign off, so I'm just going to end today with a good old-fashioned goodbye and don't ban any books.